Hi everyone. Framing is important. If you have a pretty good camera on your phone and your shot is framed well, it can look professional. So today we're going to be covering framing someone talking on camera, either speaking directly to camera like for a presentation or doing an interview where the interviewee is speaking to someone off camera. The first thing to know about is title safe. There's a margin around the edge of the screen that could get cropped off on someone's mobile device or TV. The amount that gets cropped depends on the device itself. So, following the title safe guidelines will make sure your video looks good no matter what people are watching on. If you're using an editing software, there's probably something called title safe or safe guides. If you turn that on, you'll see an overlay that looks kind of like this. Now, the purple box here is the title safe, so graphics that need to be legible should stay within this box. Now the pink box is the action safe, so anything in the frame that is outside of the pink box could get cut off. So when you're shooting, remember to account for this margin, and don't put anyone's head way up at the top of the frame unless you're okay with them losing the top of their head. Off with their heads! Now, speaking of the top of the person's head, having the right amount of headroom, or the space between the top of your subject's head and the top of the frame, is another way to make your video look more professional. Most amateurs will put their subject's head in the center of the frame. Not a good look. Headroom is a little tricky because the right amount changes depending how close your subject is to the camera. Here are some comparisons so you can see the difference. So let's take a look at a medium shot and a medium wide shot. So here you can see that both shots don't have enough headroom because my hair is right up at the top edge of the frame. And if the video is cropped at all, well, there goes my luscious, beautiful locks. The next example shows what we see most often, which is people naturally tend to put their subject's eyes right in the dead center of the frame, which leaves way too much headroom and a whole lot of ceiling in the shot. This shows a good amount of headroom, and you can see what I mean about how the right amount changes depending on how close the subject is to the camera. If you want more detail on this, you can look up the rule of thirds. Just Google it, and basically it's following the rule of thirds. You can imagine the frame broken into thirds horizontally, and you aim to put your subject's eyes at the line marking the top third. Now, I'm not sure if that makes any sense, so let me know if you need to talk more about that or if you need more info. And we'll talk about it in the Q&A. All right, next up is the language of framing. Now, this is something that Jamie learned about in college, and she's not too sure if this is too nerdy or if nobody's going to care about this, but I personally thought it would be helpful to know why we're recommending the things we do. So the language of framing is something our subconscious reacts to, and you can see extreme examples of it if you look at the cinematography of film noir movies. Now, the idea is that audiences have a subconscious reaction to characters according to how the character is framed. So this next part is for Western cultures. So because we read left to right, the person on the left side of the screen is in the power position. The person on the right is in the submissive position. So take, for example, if you watch the news, when the anchor is doing an interview with someone and you're in a split screen, the anchor will always be on the left and the other person is always on the right. And that's because the anchor is supposed to be in charge of the interview. Now, this part is more universal. So if the lens is looking down on someone, the audience subconsciously sees that person as weak. And if the lens is looking up at someone, the subconscious sees that person as strong or even intimidating. This is why eyeline is so important. I'm guessing you probably don't want your audience to see your subject as weak or intimidating, so the lens should be close to eye level as possible. We usually go just slightly above eye level because that's more flattering, but you don't want to go higher than that. So eyeline for interview is our last point for today. Now, this is more our shooting style, not a general rule, because we see a lot of interviews shot differently. But we like to have our interviewees look as close to the camera lens as possible. We don't want them looking into the lens for an interview. You just do that only when the person is directly addressing the audience. but we want them to be looking just off frame, like they're talking to someone sitting right next to the camera, which is actually what's happening. We've done literally hundreds of interviews, and we found this looked to be the most comfortable for the viewer. Now, if the interviewee is looking here versus here, we're more relatable. It feels more personal and intimate and less awkward. So again, here, which is right off the camera line, versus here, which is I'm talking to someone far off to the right of the camera. Now, to do this, I, as the interviewer, sit as close to the camera as possible and just make sure not to hit the tripod or get in front of the lens. That way, they can still see your face, but their eyeline is right next to the camera. All right. Now, if you're watching this replay in YouTube, well, my friends, this is the end for you. But if you're in a Facebook group, then the Q&A is available in the replay there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, join our Facebook group. It's super easy. The link is in the description below, and you can catch up on all the Q&As your hearts desire.